Hello guys, welcome. This is Deepika from mytutorialrat.com, and in this tutorial we are going to talk about cursor rules. So what are these cursor rules? Basically, think of them as ground rules that you give your assistant before they start working for you. So if you want certain standards to be followed for every prompt, right? If you want, let's say, your Apex classes to be named in a specific manner, you want your variables to be of camel case, you want no loops, you wanted a test class for every class. If you wanted to go ahead and do that for every prompt, you define some cursor rules, okay? And then every time you write a prompt, those rules will be enforced behind the scene. They tell cursor how to behave when helping you. They apply automatically in the background. So automatically in the background, they will be applied. So you don't need to repeat instructions every time. So you don't have to keep telling, hey, use this naming convention or use this naming convention for variables. You define these cursor rules one time, and every time you write a prompt, those rules will be applied. Without rules, cursor will generate just the general AI knowledge. It will basically use what it knows and it will create it. When you have rules specified, it tailors itself to your style, to the project or the company standard. So whatever the standards you have mentioned in the cursor rules, those will be applied to every prompt and they will run behind the scene. So that is what a cursor rule is. Rules are persistent. They apply to all prompts until you change them or you remove them. Okay, so that is important. They act like guardrails for coding, style, or process. So if you wanted to set up some guardrails, you wanted some rules to be followed, you define them under the cursor rules. And every prompt you write, they will run those rules behind the scene. They are stored in a special place. They will be stored under the cursor folder, and there's a new folder gets created called rules. And inside of that, you will store cursor rules. Okay. Now let's say this is the rules that we wanted to specify. Never put all your SOQL or DML inside loops. Always bulkify your code. Use a selective SOQL queries. Avoid non-selective patterns like these. Use collections for DML operations. Implement proper exception handling. Avoid hard coding, enforce CRUD, FLS security, avoid CPU intensive operations, always perform null checks, control trigger recursion, and also follow these naming convention that all Apex classes and files must use det prefix. Okay, so these are some cursor rules that you have defined. Now, in order for you to put these rules, all you need to do is I've copied these rules over to this notepad, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it over, and I'll go over to the cursor. And then, so in order for you to add this rule, you will go over to the settings, and then we will go to rules and memories. And here we're going to add our project rules. Okay. And here I'm going to go ahead and click on add rule. Let's say the name of the rule is important rules for Apex. And this is where it is. So you can see here under the dot cursor, a folder got created called rules. And this is your rules that have been added. And let's say you can either always apply them. You can apply them intelligently, apply to specific files, or apply manually. So there are 4 different modes. And let's say I'm going to go ahead and paste these rules over here. Now what will happen is anytime you write an Apex class, these Apex class will follow these rules. It will always be with the starting with the DET. And also will have, if you wanted to write test classes also, you can put that inside of this rule. But always make multiple rules, because what will happen is every time you write a prompt, these rules will work behind the scene, which will increase your token size as well. So you have to be mindful, and then you can always apply these rules. You can either say apply intelligently. Intelligently means when agent decides its relevance based on the description. So it will, agent will be the one deciding it. Apply to specific file when you want, okay, when file matches a specified pattern, like if it's a .apex, apply those rules. You can specify that and apply manually. Like you can mention it that, okay, this is the name of the file, important rules, that, okay, this is use these rules. Okay, so then you can do it manually also by using the @ symbol and providing the name of your rule file. So then you can say that, okay, only when I specify it, then only should be used. Right now I am saying apply always. So every time I write a prompt, these rules will taken into account. Right now we never had any naming convention for an Apex class. Now you have a naming convention that your class name should start with the letter DET. Okay, so write an Apex class that contains a method which adds two numbers and return the sum of those numbers. Okay, this is my prompt, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now you will see that the Apex class that will be created will have that naming convention, and you can see here it is using that rule behind the scene. You didn't specify it but you have put a rule file in here, and all your prompt will use these rules. And you can see here a new class got created with the same naming convention, det_math_utils, and inside of this you have a method which takes in two decimal numbers, and then all it does, it returns the sum of number 1 and number 2, and then it is basically returning you those numbers. Okay, so you can see here behind the scene these rules got implemented, and any prompt you write will be using these rules. Okay, and if you go back to cursor, if you go to the cursor and see how much was this time, how much did we use, the usage, if you go to the usage, you can see here right now it used 98.4, and it costed you about 6 cents for this particular prompt. Okay, so you have used here the cursor rules here. Now coming back, there are certain best practices for cursor rules. Keep your rules under 500 lines. So don't make your rule file too big, because every time you're writing a prompt, those rules get activated behind the scene and will be implemented. Okay, so keep your rules under 500 lines. Split large rules into multiple composable rules. So if you have a large number of rules, you split them into multiple files. Provide concrete example or referenced file, and means okay that you specify that okay, if this is what the prompt is, use these rules. Avoid vague guidance, write rules that are clear internal docs. Reuse rules when repeating prompts in chat. Okay, so you can always reuse those rules. You can always specify those rules again when you are writing your prompts. So these are some of the best practices when you're writing cursor rules. I hope you guys are enjoying these tutorials. I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you.